What if the US already has a secret space fleet? I mean, not just plans for one, but a full-on fleet of advanced aircraft using technology that sounds like it's straight out of a movie. Well, that's the wild claim at the heart of research from a Dr. Richard Boylan. And in this explainer, we're going to dive right in.
I mean, that's the core claim right there. The source material basically argues that this whole public debate about should we weaponize space is just a distraction. Because the real story, it alleges, is that the weapons have been up there for decades. So the question isn't what if, it's what is. Yeah, so that's the big question, right? If, and it's a big if any of this is real, what exactly are these systems? So let's dig into the claims made in this document. We'll start with the researcher himself and then get into the really wild stuff, the craft and the supposed secret arsenal.
All right, so before we jump into all the sci-fi tech, we got to ask who's making these incredible claims and where exactly is he getting this information from? Okay, so the author of this document is a Dr. Richard Boylan, who's a behavioral scientist, and he says this research is the culmination of like 15 years of work. He claims he's compiling info from two, let's say, very different kinds of sources. On one hand, you've got alleged government whistleblowers, and on the other, his own work with what he calls experiencers, people who say they've had encounters with extraterrestrials. So yeah, right from the jump, the foundation for all of this is built on a mix of classified leaks and the paranormal. So the big question is, how does this secret fleet supposedly fly? Well, according to this document, it all boils down to one revolutionary idea that science fiction has been obsessed with for a century: mastering anti-gravity. So the source claims there are 3 levels to this technology. First up, you've got electrogravitics, which is described as let's call it the crude method. You're basically using millions of volts of electricity to kind of push back against gravity. The next step up is magnetogravitics, using super powerful magnetic fields to create a counterforce. But the absolute top tier? The document claims it involves harnessing gravity directly from some exotic material called element 115, which, get this, was allegedly provided by extraterrestrial consultants. Yep, you heard me right.
Okay, so that's the science behind it. Now let's get to the good stuff, the hardware. The document lays out 10 specific craft in this secret arsenal. We're going to take a look at some of the wildest ones. First up, something you'll definitely recognize, the B-2 stealth bomber. Now, we all know it as this super stealthy bomber, but the source document quotes a retired Air Force colonel who makes a pretty shocking claim that the B-2 has a secret electrogravitational system on board. And that, he alleges, is the real reason it costs a staggering $1 billion+ a pop.
All right, next up is a craft you're definitely not going to find on any official list, the X-22A. The document describes it as a 2-person anti-gravity disc, basically a classic flying saucer. And check out the alleged specs. It's got a particle beam weapon and can supposedly become completely invisible, not just to radar, but to the naked eye. And to show you just how serious these claims get, the document includes this pretty chilling testimony from an alleged informant. He's describing the weapon being used during Desert Storm. And man, it paints a picture of a silent, terrifyingly effective weapon, something completely unlike anything we know about in the public arsenal. Okay, now for that infamous black triangle shape you see in so many UFO reports. Well, this source gives it a name, the TR-3B, and it's described not as an alien ship, but as a massive American tactical recon craft. Supposedly, it's powered by its own nuclear reactor and can just hover silently for hours on end.
And it gets crazier. The source's ex-NSA informant, they just call him Z, alleges that a whole squadron of these triangles was used in the Gulf War. He says they were there to knock out Iraqi communications and air defenses right before the main assault. Just imagine that. Silent, hovering weapons platforms. But you know what? According to this document, all of that is just the opening act. The real crown jewel of the secret fleet is supposedly a craft called the TAW-50, and it's described as a hypersonic space fighter bomber. And the capabilities they claim it has are, well, they're just staggering. Seriously, just take a second and let this sink in. A speed of over Mach 50, its own nuclear generator on board, and an arsenal that includes kill lasers and MIRVs. Those are multiple independently targeted nuclear missiles. Look, this isn't just a step beyond what we know. This is a quantum leap straight into science fiction. Let's just park on that speed for a second. Mach 50. I mean, that's a number so extreme, it's kind of hard to even wrap your head around.
Okay, so what is that in terms we can understand? That's over 38,000 miles per hour. Now, just to put that in perspective, you only need to hit about 25,000 miles per hour to completely escape Earth's gravity. So we're not just talking about an aircraft here. The document is describing a true weapons-ready spacecraft.
And here's the final, just jaw-dropping number from all this. According to the source's informant, a defense contractor, by the year 2002, the U.S. didn't just have one of these things. It allegedly had a whole fleet of 20 of them.
So you have to ask, why would a researcher leak all of this stuff? Well, this document isn't just a cool catalog of amazing tech. It's actually building to a really stark warning. A warning about who allegedly controls this fleet and what they might be planning to do with it. And this is where the whole thing really snaps into a full-blown conspiracy theory. The source claims this technology isn't actually controlled by the official, elected government. Nope, it's controlled by a shadowy group it calls the cabal. And the ultimate fear, the one that's expressed right in the text, is that this cabal could use this fleet to kick off a devastating war in space.
So, in the face of this alleged threat, the document actually ends with a 4-point call to action for anyone reading it. First, get informed about how this tech is being used. Second, oppose any policies and weapon systems that are designed for space warfare. Third, encourage the release of this technology for peaceful civilian use. And finally, use public awareness to expose and discredit this so-called cabal that's supposedly hoarding it all.
And really, that's what this whole document boils down to. It paints this picture of humanity standing at a crossroads with absolutely world-changing technology supposedly hidden away in the shadows. It really leaves us with a huge question. If this kind of power is real, who gets to decide how it's used? And maybe more importantly, what happens if they're already using it?